Hello, and welcome to Williams Mullen's Trending Now, an IP podcast, a legal podcast focused on providing innovative companies and investors with important and timely information concerning intangible assets such as patents, trademarks, copyrights, and trade secrets, as well as legal issues concerning digital advertising. I'm your host, Rob Van Arnhem, and today I'll be joined by my colleague, Amber Duncan, partner in our corporate section here at Williams Mullen, to discuss sweepstakes and contests. How are you, Amber?
Doing great. How are you doing, Rob?
I'm doing well. Well, exciting topic today. First of all, is there a difference between a sweepstakes and a contest? I see that folks sometimes use these terms interchangeably.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is that there is a difference between sweepstakes and contests. Only states can run lotteries, and gambling or running a lottery is generally prohibited. So these state laws prohibit companies from running a promotion that combines the three-legged stool of the sweepstakes contest rule. 1, prize, 2, chance, and 3, consideration. If you have all 3 legs of the stool, that is an illegal lottery. But if you just take away one of these elements, you can generally structure the promotion to be lawful. Now, a few things. Prize can be anything of value. Chance, that means winning depends on factors that are outside a person's control, and states have different thresholds for determining what constitutes chance. And finally, consideration does not need to just be money. It can be anything of value that a person pay money to a third party or send a text message. Any of those, any effort by the consumer can be deemed consideration. So thinking back to the 3 legs, a sweepstakes is a prize and chance, but no consideration. And a contest is a prize and consideration, but no chance.
Got it. Okay, well, that's an important distinguishing factor there. So if companies want to do this, what should they include in official rules for sweepstakes and contests?
Yeah, so first it's important to determine if it's a sweepstakes or if it's a contest. The rules are going to vary on what type of promotion it is. And the official rules should never combine a sweepstakes and a contest. There's separate rules for sweepstakes, separate rules for contests. So generally, you want to remember that this is a contract between the sponsor and an entrant. So you want to have the basic terms will always be how to enter, the entry period, a description of the prize, how the winner or winners are selected, protective provisions if something goes wrong, and a winner's list. If you're drafting sweepstakes rules, you want to make sure that there's no consideration. And that's why we offer a alternative means of entry, or AMOE, in this world, a way for the entrant to enter the sweepstakes without providing any consideration. In sweepstakes, you'll also want to include the odds of winning. For a contest, you want to think about the judging criteria. You need to set forth what criteria will be used to judge the skill. The more specificity you can include, the better. If it involves anything that may be dangerous to the entrant, I've had contests that have involved chainsaws or motorcycle. You want to include information there about the entrant's safety. And something that can get really tricky, and I've seen a lot of contests, is asking the entrant to submit user-generated content. That can be a photo, a video, their voice, anything that the consumer creates himself and is entering, uploading as part of this contest. That just opens a whole quagmire of issues, and we'll get more on that later.
Wow. Yeah. And hopefully the contest doesn't include both motorcycles and chainsaws. That would be quite the contest. So those are the kind of basics. What about any unique factors to consider?
Yeah. So you want to consider jurisdiction. And I don't mean where you, the company, is, but where the entrants reside. Often entrants, it's made online, so it can go anywhere in the 50 states. So you want to consider if you want it to be all 50 states or only a certain area. What your audience is, if you're going to limit it by age, only 18 up or 21 up, or age majority in the state. If it's limited to a certain group, a trade group, I've seen at different conferences and things. What channels you'll use to both advertise and enter the sweepstakes or promotion, especially if you're advertising or allowing entry through social media platforms. There are very specific rules about what information has to be included both in the official rules and the post. And then going back to the states, if your sweepstakes or contest is open throughout the 50 states, sometimes there's either bonding or registration requirements. The big ones are Arizona, Florida, New York, and Rhode Island, where they may require companies to register or post bonds for certain type of promotions. So often companies will exclude minors, exclude residents of those 4 states to avoid the hassle of dealing with requirements. It just depends on the scope of the promotion and the audience you want to reach.
Got it. So earlier you mentioned protective provisions. What is that, and how are those used in the official rules?
Yeah, so the sponsor of the sweepstakes or contest wants to protect itself against liability and any claims. The protective provisions that should be included in a set of rules largely depend on the specific details of the promotion. But some common ones are the right to cancel or modify. If something happens, either a technological problem, something I've seen quite a bit this past year is if a global pandemic happens and something you would never anticipate, but you're unable to run the sweepstakes or contest as anticipated. A release that states that entrants agree to release and hold harmless the company from any claims associated with the promotion. The limitation of liability, that the company is not responsible and cannot be held liable for technical errors or other things that might prevent the promotion from running as planned. A right to substitute, to reserve the right to substitute any prize of equal and greater value if that prize is no longer available. Forum selection and errors clause. This protective clause is referred to in this world as a craft clause, and named after a Kraft Foods promotion game that conducted many, many years ago, where there were rare game pieces, and too many of those rare game pieces were accidentally printed. So you're going to want to include this craft clause for any promotion where game pieces will be used to state what the company will do if there's a printing, production, or other error, more prizes are claimed than are intended to be awarded, stuff like that. You just want to think all these protective provisions are, what if something goes wrong? How can I protect my company?
A lot of good information there. So where have you seen companies fall into hot water lately with regard to these issues?
Yeah, the user-generated content, which we briefly discussed before, this is something that can create a bit of problems for companies. Companies want to use it because it really encourages you to interact with the consumer, shows you understand your audience and potential consumers. But you have to be careful where folks are uploading their own information. You want to be careful that there's no third-party right violations of copyrights or trademarks, that you don't show other people in your submission, that you also don't show any other companies or brands or logos. You don't want to have any information that's uploaded that's profane, lewd. You can list out all the bad things that it doesn't want, that it cannot be part of the submission, and what the company will do if it receives that type of bad content. Another area where I see is companies having quite a lot of problems is not realizing their platform-specific requirements. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, they all have specific requirements about promotions run on their platforms, and they are changing constantly. You always want to go look at their specific rules to see if there's anything you need to put not only in the way you run your promotion or the post advertising the contest or sweepstakes, but also what needs to be included in the fine print and official rules. Some surprising ones, Facebook, you can't require a like to enter a post. Twitter, you call them guidelines, not rules. The Pinterest, you can't require pin it to win it. Instagram, be careful about mobile device and data. This is something I commonly include in the official rules. If its entry is allowed through a mobile device, that fees may result from your mobile carrier as well. Just being very obvious about those. And Instagram and Facebook actually require you to release them in the official rules from liability, just like you would do for the sponsor. And the entrants don't grant the sponsor a license simply by posting on social media. You need to be explicit about that license and right to publicity in your official rules.
Got it. Well, that's really helpful. Any final thoughts for our listeners today?
I know I threw a lot at you. Thinking quickly about some other issues I've seen arise lately, the text to win sweepstakes. It's generally lawful to offer this, even though that's consideration, as long as you make it clear that it's subject to the standard rates as well, and then provide your AMOE, your alternative means of entry. Just be careful, because if there's any premium charges associated with that texting, you might fall into hot water there, and I've seen plaintiffs' attorneys come after companies that way. If it's a bigger promotion, you have a contract with a third party, such as a prize supplier, make sure you have that contract in place before you run the promotion, so it's clear about the prize being supplied. If you're using an agency, who harbors the responsibility for different things. So that's all spelled out before the sweepstakes run. There's just the most important takeaway is all the prep work before it's launched. Because once it's launched, you don't want to change the rules. You don't want to cancel it. That's when you run into trouble. So the best advice is just think about everything before launching it.
Well, that's great. Thanks. That'll wrap up our discussion on sweepstakes and contests. I'd like to thank Amber Duncan for joining me on Trending Now, an IP podcast. If you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes, please contact us. You can also visit our intellectual property practice page at williamsmullen.com/IP. There you can find out more about our team, as well as past episodes of this podcast and legal alerts. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast to be notified when our next episode posts. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.